The first day of the 26th SKB tournament saw some very interesting games. It was the first time the tournament was happening in Reaches, so there was some getting used to needed from most of the players. So the number of blunders were high today, and that's partly because of fast play from some of the players, and partly because you're not familiar with the interface. So I'm going to take you through a few games, a few positions that happened today. The main position is the main highlight of the day is the last round game between Adrit and Sonic Believer. Sonic Believer was white, Adrit was black. We have to join this game right here because this is where things start happening. Sonic Believer goes for d4, and Adrit has the option of taking bishop takes, which is much safer. He goes for pawn takes, allowing e5, and then he plays d5, which is the correct move. So basically, white takes the knight and then pawn takes bishop. This should be good for black, even though white can take on g7. White gives a check first. Here, Adrit should have just played bishop e6. The normal move would have been perfectly fine. But he goes king f8, and that causes problems for him. White plays bishop g5, pawn takes bishop h6. Now the black king is coming under heavy fire. Knight c3, a very nice move by Sonic Believer. Of course, pawn cannot take because queen takes, queen is mate. So f5, and then comes another nice move. Sonic Believer had put his knight on pre, and now for one more time continuously, he puts it on pre. Of course, black cannot take it because of rook e8. That would again be mate. So this bishop is super strong, and the king is not safe. So black played, Adrit played bishop e6 correctly. Now Sonic Believer played bishop g4. This was a slight inaccuracy. He should have saved the knight with knight f4 and then knight h5, knight f6 would have been great. Black takes the knight, but Sonic Believer gets a rook. But this is still good for black because black has got two pieces for the rook, which is supposed to be winning, right? Rook e2, rook g8. Now there's a threat of queen takes knight, which Adrit sees. So he goes, which Sonic Believer sees. He goes rook d2, bishop c5. Black's pieces are coming back to life. c3, d3. These pawns are also now very strong. b3. Here, the best move would have been b5. Just keep the pawn structure intact. The d pawn is passed, so you have to keep it in the position. That would be the easiest way to win. But Adrit goes pawn takes pawn. Rook takes. Queen c4. Again, if you look at the position, Adrit still has two pieces for the rook. His king is literally safe. Pawn takes, queen takes. Rook b1, queen takes, rook takes. Now bishop c4, rook d7, bishop e2. Bishop takes knight is a threat which cannot be really defended. So here Sonic Believer goes rook d5 so that when bishop takes, he'll take here. But even after that, rook g2 comes. Now black is continuing to take the game by its own. King e1, rook, king g7, rook takes, rook check. And now comes rook d1, and here the rook is gone. And here Sonic Believer, Niranjan resigned. So it was a roller coaster game. Adrit always had the advantage, but he converted it after a heavy fight, a very intense game. The second position I'm going to show you is a very silly mistake by Yatin. A position where he is up a rook and a pawn. The king is even cut from the pawn. The king cannot even pass. A very simple move here would have been just to move the rook. Just move the rook on the same file so that the pawn can promote. The king cannot cross. The king cannot touch the pawn. Instead, in this position, Yatin played a silly move, rook a7. That move itself does not lose, but it makes the job much more harder. King moves, rook goes back. King g7, rook moves. King h6, rook defends. Now he's not able to get the pawn forward, so he gets a king forward, which is fine. All this happens. And here comes the decisive mistake soon. King h8, and here he played king f6, allowing a stalemate. A silly blunder, not expected at his level. He can even give up the pawn. He can even give up the pawn and do a rook checkmate. Even that is possible. Instead, he has given up a half point for free in this position. The third position, we are going to look at this one. Here, Pranav has a great position against Siddharvan. This is the first round. Pranav played bishop h5. King went back. Queen f8. All perfect moves. Now here, bishop f7 would have been a simple way to win. White is up a rook. Pranav is up a rook. So just bishop f7 would win the game. Even queen a8, that's a very strange move. I have no idea why he played that. If the idea is to play rook f8, the queen can just move one step. Here, But then he went to the corner, and that allowed black to give a few checks. And then he picked up the bishop. When the bishop is gone, now perpetual happens. Queen check, queen goes back, king f1, queen check, queen goes back, and rook went in. White is threatening a mate, but the problem is the king is without any support. Black just gives checks, and the king cannot get out of the checks. And the game became a draw by repetition. He had no way to get out of the checks, and it became a draw by 3-time repetition. The last position I'm going to show you is this first round game between Samarth and Arjun. This was again a roller coaster game because first Arjun was winning, then Samarth was winning, then again Arjun was winning. Right now, Samarth wants to play knight f6. For that, he played rook g1. He's trying to play knight f6, but the knight is pinned, so he can't threaten it yet. Black is unaware of white's plans. Now white just quietly moves the king out of the pin, as if to come this way. But then he's really threatening knight f6. Arjun is unaware of this still, and Arjun falls prey to knight f6 check. The pawn is pinned, so the rook is gone. Now here, Samarth is winning. He's up by a knight, which should be an easy conversion. Takes. Yeah, here a very good move would have been knight d4. Not giving any play for black, getting the knight to a great square. And then white can slowly chip at the pawns and win them. But then he went king c4, allowing rook d2, giving up a pawn, and giving activity to that rook. Rook e2, b5, king moves, takes. So this is a very interesting position. Here, if you think hard and properly, white will realize that these two pawns are a force to be reckoned with, which means a knight itself cannot stop both of them. So the correct plan here would have been to get the king to the center so that the king can help take these pawns, and only then worry about this side. But then Samarth had no time to think. He's still very inexperienced. He has not thought a little bit in the whole game. If you compare the times, this is what the situation is: 22. The game was 20 plus 10. Starting time was 20. And now black went h5. Samarth is unaware of what is going to happen. He goes to the pawns. Pawn h4. Knight went back. The knight is a very bad piece against the h pawn, especially. And that's evident here. Black goes g4. Position is already gone. It's lost. The king is too far away and is unable to help stop the pawn. Samarth goes ahead with his plan. And now h3 just wins the game. King takes, but h2. And black gets the queen. And then he went on to convert this without any trouble. Did not let the white player queen at all. Queen check. And the queens and the king just stop the pawns and then checkmate. So day one saw a lot of blunders like this, lot of mistakes in the game speed, especially of some players, and hopefully they've learned their lesson with these losses. And let's see how the day two goes. So after day one, in the standings, there are 3 people on full points, 3 out of 3. But that does not matter at all because there's a full day to go. 3 rounds means a lot. And there are a lot of people behind with 2.5 and 2 out of a total 40 players.